Okay, so we are recording. So our guest artist this morning is Joy Okokon. She is a second-year graduate student at Missouri State University in Springfield. She recently won an NCCA Studio Potter Mentor Award, and she also just won a Judy Collins Award. So welcome, Joy.
Thank you. All right. So, thank you all for having me here. I want to thank the civic community for giving me this opportunity to share with my alma mater, my progress in my field. And if you have any questions like during my presentation, please just take note of that. So, I'm Joy Okokon. I am a Nigerian. I'm currently schooling and working in Springfield, Missouri. Um, my work is based on ceramic sculpture and multimedia um, materials. So I don't just work with solely with one material. I try to work with other materials based on like where I find myself. A little background story of my creative process or how I became an artist. I was privileged to visit um, of the one of the best universities in Nigeria, in Abuja. And um, I wasn't good at every other class assignment. I don't know if every other person was like me though, but one thing I did look out for was always attending the fine arts class. I was always so creative, getting it with my hands, making little crafting, and I get so excited when it's time for arts class. So um, I give that respect to my primary school growing up, which they did build up my knowledge in like creating and making art. So this is one of my journey in making. Another creative background of mine is in baking and decorating, making jewelries, weaving jewelries, hair braiding, which over time I opened my own um, uh, hair business wherever I find myself. And also this is online too, where people, ladies and both genders come in and book, and then I have to braid their hair, which was very therapeutic for me. And also batik and adire making. This is something I also learned growing up, and it was, a fusion of where I am right now as an artist. Another strong pillars in my life that also helped me in my creative drawing, my creative process. My nana, she, they're all makers. So my nana knows how to braid hair. She knows how to um, um, make textile clothes and weave in clothing. My mother as well passed on from my nana to my mom. She also developed that skill in making, baking, weaving. So whatever skill I did make, I directly learned it from my mama, and it's like a passed on history growing up. And my dad, he's a planner, events planner. He owns American Events Planner back in Nigeria, which is over 28 years. I learned to see him plan events, and also working tirelessly, and also learning from all of these persons in my life has made me who I am right now. Um, so these are some strong pillars in my life, and I'm so glad to have them build up my creative journey. When I came into the US, I did not I had to learn how to research of other artists within the um, um, all over the world. I wasn't so, into it when I was in every other school. I didn't really like establish that knowing so much, but then I saw a need to like check out other artists. And so this artist, Woodrow Nash, is associated with the 1950s. artwork. So his theme that I feel resonates with mine is the theme of human sensuality, spirituality, um, cultural identity, his integration of complex symbols and aesthetics, and his inspiration drawn from African and world tribal culture. I find that resonates personally with my work. Um, Another artist from Nigeria, and I was also privileged to attend a workshop in her space back in Nigeria last summer, is Nike. She's one of the oldest batik and tie-dye makers in Nigeria. And so her main concepts that I feel resonates with mine is the Yoruba history and mythology and folktale, addressing social issues, particularly with female um, suffering and societal constructs on women, preserving of traditional Nigerian weaving and dyeing methods, emphasizing on passing down the knowledge across generation. I feel why I did stick with her is because of that. Currently in the US right now, her daughter is hosting and holding this workshop across the US. Also, the knowledge that she picked up from her mom, and she's pushing the agenda out of Nigeria and around the continent, which I find very interesting and also resonates with my practice. Um, Another artist that I associate with my work is Wang Jimoto. Um, Reimagining the female body, Mutu blends diverse imagery to create hybrid figures, challenging traditional representation of femininity and identity, and the cultural hybridity. She explores the complexity of cultural hybridity, examining how different culture elements interact and shape individuals and collective identity. Had former qualities also stand out in my work, and we'll see that as I move on with the slide. I felt they were interesting resource to my creative practice. Another artist, which I love so much, Zizi Poswa. She celebrates African womanhood and reflects on the Xhosa's culture and tradition, um, ancestral stories, history, and the integration of mysticism, rituals, and religion, blending African hairstyles and traditional vessel forms. So Zizi works really large scale, almost monumental. But then I love the way she interplays with contemporary and her traditional idea of hair culture and introduces it into our work using various materials, clay, and then this brass and many other constructs in the work I find resonates with my work personally. Another artist that I recently discovered from South Africa, Mandeli Dalban. He's also a South African who is very much into the Xhosa culture history and ancestral communication and beliefs. His fusion of traditional and contemporary art forms. I was in my points and on a point in my work right now, I'm slowly drifting away from the traditional way of presenting works in space. And so I've always found an issue, and you see that in my slide moving forward, I always did find an issue displaying my works on pedestal. I just felt there was something distracted from what I was going for in my work. And so I discovered this artist that actually made stool from clay. And I picked that up as a challenge of myself to creating stools that my viewers could actually sit on, and my works can also have their own space in a setting. So we'll see that in the slide as I move further. Another artist that I find resonates with my work is Kwali Ladi. She's a Nigerian and a fusion of traditional Kwali pots techniques with modern pottery methods, has stylized animal motifs and intricate design inspired from nature. Our experimentation of with glazing and wheel throwing and firing, a cultural preservation through continuation of the tradition of African pottery practice. And so with Ladi, and what I resonate more with her work, um, I use a lot of semiotics, a lot of symbols in my work, to communicate what I have to do, which I find Ladi really interesting in her work. I also did a lot of experimentation with glaze, not going for like the really shiny or glossy surface, interplaying with that and what I really want to communicate as an artist. I thought she was a very interesting artist to look on whilst I make my work. And also continuing that traditional culture um, in pottery making, I felt she was a very interesting resource in my work. And so for my main concept and theme, my work is biological and autoethnographical. I introduce a lot of stories about myself and also my culture, which is something I'm carrying on in my artistic practice. Most of my work are mostly representational and abstract art. Um, which I did interplay, but right now I'm solely diving towards abstract art in making. There's a lot of feminist theory in my work, which I'm a strong advocate for. A lot of semiotics explain in my work in a ways I don't want to communicate verbally, and I use just symbols, and I feel that gives me a whole bigger spectrum to like talk about my work. A fusion of traditional and contemporary art forms. I find that interplay with between like the traditional way of making and then the contemporary way of like adding things, especially where I find myself. I also introduce that sort of culture in my traditional mode of making. Cultural preservation through continuation of traditional African hairstyles through ceramic and mixed media. That as where my work is currently moving forward. So what I'm doing is this history and um, um, hairstyle or words that have been lost through time. My work is that space that pushes that forward. And we can kind of see this in my early work when I was in KNUST. Um, I love making work about women. I love making work about the women form, the women experience, myself as a woman, and growing up learning a lot of things from the women that came after me. So I saw that playing a lot in my work, and I didn't just solely like working with one medium. I love to work with the ropes and beads, and as incorporating all what I've learned growing up into my work. So I didn't just want to see a finished glazed work, and also it was a struggle in USD finishing my work, but I didn't let that limit me. I actually had to search for other things that I felt would like amplify my work in ways. And so I made a series of mostly women forms when I was in USD. Um, and so during my final thesis, my BFA thesis when I was in USD, this was like grand moments to have like all my works glazed and finished, like seeing all of this in come to life. It was a beautiful experience for me because at the studio is it was a struggle to like fully glaze a piece, and when you have a glaze, as you can see in most of my pieces, it was a good struggle to get a glazed piece out of like my whole during my time in USD. But I made a whole series of like 26 busts from talking about femininity in forms. And about this series, it was just based of my experience living in Ghana and staying in Ghana. And so it was a whole lot of twist and turn for me. And so I thought to like relate that into like what I do, ceramic and clay. And so what I did is made a series talking about like how I felt from my first year to my final year. And I used like facial expressions to show what that is, and also my favorite food. I'm a good fufu and light soup person. I feel it's very delicious. And so I made those out of hair in the three pieces of down there because I loved fufu and light soup. And so I also did was exposed to like the tradition and religion back in Kumasi there. It was not just the Muslims and the Christian. There's also like the traditional leaders and their traditional beliefs there, which I was also exposed to and knowing. And that was like something that I learned and I introduced it in my work. I also did bring back my own culture and tradition back here from Nigeria, the different cultures and like how they would put their hairstyles on and how they would what that means, when you see a lady with this hairstyle, oh, she's from Yoruba or she's an ethnic woman or that's a household woman, all of these things. And I also infused that. So all of my experience when I was in school and my final year, I was like, I'm gonna make this. And I felt it was a successful project for me to see my works finished and also to share my experience during my 4 years schooling in Ghana. In 2021, I got into Eastern Illinois University as a graduate student. So I have a 1 year master in Eastern Illinois University. And it was a struggle for me leaving home, knowing that my mom, who is obviously like an icon that I looked up to, she struggled with osteoarthritis, and this um, did get worse through time. So it was up to 10 years before she made a decision in taking a surgery. But right now she's doing well and she's healing well. But at this point in time, I struggled with leaving her. Out of my siblings, I'm the only one that did take up this making ability. And I was assisting her and I was just by her. So leaving her and leaving home was a struggle for me. And so I made work is titled Wholeness. And I envisioned in this work, I envisioned how um, our bodies and ourselves go through like a lot of like for my mom herself, her body was numb to medication. Like she would take medication and not feel anything. And even though this was very hazardous to her, we still needed her to be alive and still function. And I made this work talking about like parts of her. Is it a was normed through medication or being taken away or being fixed in her? She went through a lot, but she was a very strong woman. She never wore any of what she was going on her face. And I was struggling with communicating that in my work because I was always thinking about her. This is like my first year in the US, so I was constantly thinking about her um, making in this process. So I displayed this work in 3 different locations. I think even more, but this is the one for time's sake I had to like limit it. But and it varies in scale depending on where I display it. And the up close of the piece, and this is also on my website, it has like wrinkles and fragments on it. Again, this is like the physicality of what her body did go through. Um, and thinking about that and making work was what I was going through at that time. This work also was awarded. I was awarded with this work, an astounding student in the international sculpture. This is at Hamilton, and I got the opportunity to display this at the Johnson Stewart's Atelier, which was my first, one of my first beautiful moments here in the US. And so I also thought of that healing process and wellness process. So I started making these garments, which when being worn, it has like this moving sensation. I considered at the time I was researching about materials that when you wear on yourself would is supposed to assume some kind of like calmness or meditative process or some healing process. I wasn't able to ship this to her, but again, thinking about her while I was making, it was something I did enjoy. I was so engrossed in it because leaving or being away from her did cause a toll on me. And I wasn't even thinking about myself or what I did want to say as an artist at that time. And so I started making works about my mom, thinking about her. And so I used like bentonite clay and stoneware clay, some elements of germstones. I made this wearable sculpture, and um, that resonates about like healing um, and wellness of the body. Still made some more sculptures. So where I did targets were the places that she did feel that arthritis. So like her spine and then her kneecap and um her shoulders. So places that those arthritis did hit. I was just making works about it. And at a point, I did get tired of it because I noticed every time I did talk about it and every time I did speak much about it, it was mentally draining for me, and I had to move away to what I really want to say as an artist. And I didn't. I was always making hair, and I was like, oh my God, if I'm making hair for people, what about talking about it in my artistic practice? And I had to slow down and stop making work about my mom's illness. And so I can focus more because talking about it did distract me and did slow me down in my making process. And so I started making work about hair culture in Nigeria. As a hairstylist, I get to meet people and like, hey, they want to make this hairstyle, they want to make this hairstyle devoid of what their hairstyle means, the originality of that hairstyle. And so I'm like, I'm going to take this up as my research moving forward. And so when I came to Springfield, Missouri, here after my program in Eastern Illinois, I started making work about hair culture. And then the first thing that I did during that point in time was make bust figures about women in Nigeria, different parts of Nigeria. There's the Hausa, the Yoruba, the Igbo, and the Efik ethnic group, which I'm originally from, the Efik culture. And so I noticed that they had interesting hair stories in these various ethnic groups, which I was very fascinated and interested in. And so I thought to delve into it. And I noticed that once I did separate from what felt more down and sorrowful, and I went into something more joyful, I kept making work. I was excited about it. And so I started making these bust forms. Um, they're actually I made a uh, mold, and then I did a press mold, and then I made the beads on the hair and the fabrics. Actually, the original ones from where they would be sourced from. I actually did braid this hair though. It took a minute to do it. I did braid that and created the brass pins and the metal stuff here. But the fabrics are originals. The beads made out of stoneworker. They're actually coral beads that I actually made here because coral beads, they're royal beads from Nigeria, where I come from, and they're very hard to source for. So I'm like, I'm gonna make my own for the women that I want to represent in my work. And I was thinking of abstracting what the original sense of that hair, what it looks like. And so I started making different types of other types of bust forms. This is coiffure. I made one, two, three. Um, and thinking of how I can abstract the hair, what language I want to communicate in my work, and using colors to emphasize that part of the body. And color, texture, I thought it was an important way of communicating what I want to go for in my work. And so I started abstracting the hair and slowly moving it away from um, representing what the hair would look like. And I made this series. So talking about like different hairstyles from different culture. This is a series from the Afric ethnic group where I come from. And so what I basically did was they have this history of what hairstyle looks like when you're from an infant to when you go to your adulthood stage. And you can see that gradual shift as you go further. So the first piece, it talks about the hair that an infant would wear. And you'd know this hair is assigned to an infant, and it's very detailed and tiny and really interesting. And we get to the detailed aspect of it, but this was fascinating at the time because when the child would wear this hairstyle, no one would let you know the age group this child is on. And then at the middle, the piece at the center is kind of talking about celebratory. This hair is a celebratory hair. So when a young lady like myself would like to step out and go for like an important event, think of like a king ceremony or like wedding event, she'll have the hair placed in her hair. And no one will tell you that she's going for something fun and exciting. And so I used an orange color to emphasize a sense of celebration. And then the marks around her around the body is a symbol of stretch marks. And this is a gradual shift, which most women go through, a gradual shift from like that young age to like a certain age in your body where you start expanding and changing. And so at this third stage, which is really fascinating, is the stage of when she's ready to get married. And so every part of ours is really intentional. So what this is similar to, she has to go to like um a fattening room. Back in the days, the lady will have to go to a fattening room. And so that fattening room is actually like the Swiss finishing girls' school, where she'll be trained and fed, literally to look like a pot. And during the celebratory aspect, this is like after a month, she has to come out with this beautiful hairpins, and then the um, pointy side at the top is actually a representation of the male pelvic area to show that she's ready for marital bliss. And then the black hair that is around the body is a representation of um, how old she is. So the longer the hair, um, the older you are. The shorter the hair, that means you're like the last born or the second to the last. And if you notice from like the ethnic identity piece, that is that hair I made is for myself. I'm the second daughter in my family, and so the hair will be about like my um somewhere about like a bra length. But for my elder sister during her wedding, she had it all the way to her butt. And so that hair kind of tell like where they are in the family. So the length of this hair in this piece is a representation of a firstborn child, which has is ready for like a marital bliss. And I love the story behind it, the ethnic group and community. And yes, this is still practice, but again, that history and that story has been lost through time. And I'm standing in a place. My work is in that place to like preserve that and keep that because I want that to stay and not leave in any way. And the celebratory hair actually got into the show at Nsika, the jury show at Nsika, and I actually got a merit award for that, which was exciting. Um, and this is a close-up view of what that looks like. And I, that took a hot minute to make those lines, but again, that intricateness of like the hair pattern is something I was trying to represent in my work. And also what what this represents is obviously the male pelvic area when a woman wears it, which is ready for marital bliss, and then the marks being created on the body that transition in life um, as a woman. Okay. So again, another series. This is the Yoruba culture. They also have a very fascinating a whole hair series, and so I made hair as an expression of status. Um, and then I did the research on what this hairstyle means. Again, people wear this hairstyle devoid of its meaning and they're just moving on with their day. And I was interested in like why this hairstyle came into existence. And so I picked specific hairstyle. This hairstyle is assigned to like the royal family and what the queen will wear, what the daughter will wear, what the maidens would wear. And it's just in that order. So this hairstyle is worn by would be worn by the maidens in the and we'll see a closer view of that. And then this is missing a top, and I'm working on that with brass. This is supposed it's something similar, but it's the representation of the queen, and this is her daughter, and this is uh, a story. This one is a representation of when a woman is interested in her husband, in like wanting to mate with a husband, she would communicate it through her hair. And so she'll wear this hairstyle moving all the way to the front. And once she wears that hairstyle, the community will know is either she's been through the process or she's about to go through the process. And so I find that really fascinating. And I tied it into the series. And also color plays an important role, talking about like royalty. Um, and this fabric I made during last summer in the Nikkei Art Gallery, where I learned the process of batik making even more. And still thinking of ways to elevate my piece and not having it sit on the floor. Again, it's time back to the idea of how the traditional mode of sitting, which I love, 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 when braiding hair, that mode of communication. We don't sit on like fancy stools or fancy chairs. You actually have to lower yourself down. I'm constantly thinking of how my work can actually be in that space of how it would originally look like. And also pushing people away from their um, traditional way of like sitting or addressing work in space. Something I'm really pushing for there. And so this work of mine did get into. I was awarded in best graduate students and for these two pieces. And again, as you can see, I slowly um, change the setting and how I want my work to be placed or be sitting in space. Um, and so I was thinking more about like how that looks like for me as an artist rather than just have that sit in the conventional pedestal, which I don't find resonates with where I'm gearing towards. And so I keep pushing that idea of like, how do I want my work to be placed in space to invite my viewers and what I want to communicate as an artist. And so these are the close-up details of what it looks like. My representation of how I would braid the hair in clay and the hairstyle that moves forward, which communicates a woman's intention of like mating with a husband. And these are the details of the hairstyle that I'm trying to communicate. Another thing that I find fascinating about, interesting in my work is creating coral beads from clay. So, why I would do that rather than going for its original is that I have the liberty in introducing symbols that make meaning to me. And so I introduce symbols that reflect where I'm coming from, some tribal marks, some marks talking about like my home, some marks talking about um, my experience from traveling all the way or coming all the way to a different country. So that's the privilege I have to like carefully craft each coral bead and, wear it on myself. It actually weighs as it weighs this is equivalent to the weight of how an original coral bead would weigh, which is really heavy. Um, and this was also, I also had an opportunity to donate this to the Arts Axis fundraising for the Ken University's agenda and like getting materials for the students. And I was more than happy to have my work be shared and to other persons within the community. And so, yeah, I use like brass beads, which I handcrafted the metal studio here. The cowries are actually originals from back at home, so I will source that, and I also use gemstones. I'm still working with that as well, and I find that really an important way of like elevating my work. An in progress project again, moving my work away from pedestals. I started making my own stools. And I'm excited that I did come in contact with Andali's piece. And so I'm revisiting the Egon Stallone setting because this is like an ideal way of how I want my work to be presented. So I want to get my viewers to lower themselves down and interact with my piece on that level. Um, and I'm working. These are like the first successful pieces that I've made that could hold a person. and also hold my piece in space. And I'm still pushing that idea further with my other pieces, again, devoid of pedestals, the traditional way of displaying works is where I'm gearing towards. Still in progress, but it's turning out great. Another thing that I am working in progress is making combs. And so I back in Ghana, I was gifted a wooden comb, which now researching about it is when you're gifted that, is it a way of blessing or a way some persons use it for healing, but I'm sure it was like my farewell into what I needed to do. So I was gifted a wooden comb back in the day, and now making works about hair, I'm like, oh my God, I can make my own comb. And so I am working based off the symbol of that comb, and I'm able to reflect it here. It's Sankofa. It's one of the Adinkra symbols that talks about returning and fetching. I love the idea behind that, because all my work right now is going back, picking up what I did leave behind, or picking up the ideas that have been lost and moving that forward. And so I'm making combs out of walnut wood. Walnut wood is native to Springfield here, and connecting that idea between um, what I originally want to communicate and what I currently have present here. And so I'm using walnut wood, which smells good when working with. I love. So I'm making series of this comb, and the idea behind this is that during my thesis show, I'll actually have this comb displayed in its raw state and invite my viewers over to have a feel of what a wooden comb will be on their hair. So this is an in progress project that am hand carving and making. Um, and also, I'm going to work in bigger scale when for a different install. But yes, I'm making handheld combs that you can actually use on your hair. Um, this is a brass series that I'm making for my shuku piece that didn't have a hair piece on. So this is for the queen. So brass or bronze is used in the Yoruba culture to either preserve the image of a dead king or prince or princess. And it's believed that their spirit still continues and lives in that. And so I'm using brass to represent like the royal clan. And so I started, which is very challenging, but it was such a good challenge. I started making the brass hair piece in representation to like my culture in that sense. Another thing that I'm also engaged with in Missouri State here is teaching. And so as part of my graduate program, I am also privileged to teach students. I never learned how to, like, I've never taught undergrad before. I would usually teach kids, but it's been an interesting journey to learn and also teach students. And so I teach the 3D departments on the foundations class. And these are some results of like my students' projects, which I'm really proud of. And we also get into like little exhibitions during the end of the semester. But aside them making, I'm also cognizant or conscious of them documenting their piece, because this piece or the students, I was in a show with them and they got an award for best undergrad, which I was so excited about. They're really good at their skill. They're really good at their work. That like aha moments. And so I'm also very conscious of like students making their work, and also like final spirit. I don't do so much. I let them document their piece, like put in titles, have a good slide show, guide them through the process of like photographing and making their work, which um, I also keep that as documentation for myself and save myself the stress from like photographing anything and make them do it as a project, which is exciting. So it's a wood project making them think in 3D model, and we're talking about balance, junction, and color. Another project that I did work with them is metamorphosis. This is working just a little bit of clay. Um, Again, pushing that making them work in 3D in a little scale, but then having them metamorphose like two objects. They bring in like two different objects and have them think of how to metamorphose the piece into like something abstract. I found that was challenging and interesting, and I did have some pretty good results from that. Some key things that I that did help me, and I as through time that I learned moving forward in my work is to build a rapport with professors and assistant studio. I'm so happy, and I'm sure um, every woman in this platform, any undergrad in this platform should be proud of having a professor like Professor Notte, who is constantly and always there to assist or, you know, just be there. So just make yourself available. Don't shy away or move away from, this key persons in your life. They're actually there to help. And then I'm glad to still keep that rapport with my professors in the universities that I have moved on through time. Um, and also I tried to something I did not know and I was totally ignorant of is helping at the studio. Um, moving and helping to fix things and help fire tunes and all. I was just not interested, but I had to learn like, oh my God, if I have to teach or if I have to be in this field, I have to learn how to do these things. And so I'm currently teaching a foundation ceramics class, and that is also making me learn. And even though um, I'm not taking any role within the studio, um, I also would meet my professors and ask them like, hey, please, what would you want me to do or fix around in the studio? Or are we making clay today or are we making stuff? So like consciously helping them out. They already know how to do it. They're already skilled in that. So I'm the one that have to learn. So I have to meet them and seek for that help. Engage in local and community projects. Um, over here at Missouri State, um, I try to look for opportunities for myself, like the International Student Service here. I when they have like programs, I try to like ask like, hey, can I exhibit my stuff? Because it's for international students, and that's a way to like put up my work or put up my voice there. So I try to communicate that um uh, push out my work there and get engaged with them, get to like cook food, get to cook stuff, just get to involve myself with things around my community, apply for juried national or regional exhibition. I didn't get this opportunity during my undergrad. I didn't even think it was a thing. I thought you had to get to a certain level to do that. But again, I've gotten to understand like a little exhibition within the studio, a little exhibition within your space. Even I've seen some persons use their home or certain part of their home as an exhibition space. If you and just create that exhibition for yourself. It could be solo, it could be group. You can pair up with a friend. It's something that I strongly advocate for. You can create opportunities like fundraisings or pop-up sale. Um, for me at the studio, it's taxing, but I think of like this is the only time I have right now. If I leave school, I'm not sure how this opportunity. So what I would do is again speak to my professors, get them involved in this. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to raise some money to like probably ship my work, even though I might get some fund from school. I know that won't be enough, but I'm trying to like raise some money and then like, hey, put together some few students. You guys should make work and let's start up a pop-up sale. Let's start up um a fundraiser for whatsoever, and then some money goes back to the department, and then I get a part of it. That is an addition to my resume. That is, it has helped me in so many ways, right? And so um, I get myself involved in such a thing. Again, networking with alumni, utilizing this platform, and also attending conferences. Um, Again, when I was in undergrad, I did not know any of this. Again, it's based on the environment, but I know currently in UST, because of the exposure that has come into the department, all of these opportunities like flooding in, and I would just say grab it and go for it if you can. Local wherever you are, I would just say go for it. Wherever you can, make use of this platform that has been like brought to your doorstep, and just communicate with whoever you want to, that you feel that you're comfortable with communicating with. And then there's a mentorship program here at Stewig if you're interested in like speaking to any professor on this platform. You're more than happy to like assist, and that's where the whole group is being created. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Wonderful.
If you have questions.
Yes. Does anyone have questions? So I do have a question that I'll start off with. So it seems, your work is very mixed media. You're really comfortable with lots of different mediums. And I also wonder, and your surfaces are varied also, not just glazing. And so I'm wondering I'm sure there are a lot of influences on that for you. And I'm wondering if maybe part of that was spending time at KNUST where you couldn't glaze things until the very end, so you had to learn a lot of different surface variations?
My works at KNUST, it was pretty much limited to like, again, what was available at the time. When I came over here, again, I had the room to, and I was still exploring in UST because my work look in one way or in one color was not what I was always wanting to go for. So I would like to play around with different materials and colors. So maybe that just stemmed from like me not having so much material to finishing material to work with at the time. But I think I'm really strong on like exploring. What can this do for me? What can clay do for me that wood can't do for me, or metal can't do for me, or fabric or tie and dye, batik can't do for me? So how can I like play around with, interplay with those mediums as like I go? So yeah, I think that's what I have to say about that. Yeah.
Looks like Sana has a comment. Or not, I'm not sure. I just saw you unmuted yourself, so.
Oh, I didn't even realize I did that.
Oh, okay.
I just think that this was such a really thorough, researched project, that journey actually that you've been on, that I was just so infused in every step and stage of the way. I felt like you linked me and connected me and crossed the T's and the dots and all that kind of stuff. It was a wonderful, wonderful autobiographical infusion for me. I appreciate it very, very much. I like the links and the influences that you talked about, and I often don't talk very much about links and influences. Do you, Rebecca, in your work? I don't.
I just a little bit. I show one slide, that's all. So
one slide.
Well, three artists, and that's all.
I got you. That's what I really, really enjoyed about listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam, did you want to say anything? You were chatting, I see.
Yeah. Oh, well done, Joy.
Thank you, Professor.
Very inspiring, and I think you broke it down for our students to. I'm here in the studio with some of the students, and they're asking me where you studied, and I told them you studied here. So that's very positive, and you could see from the chat what they are saying. I think it's very inspiring.
Yeah, you got a whole lot of wows and
they're inspired to do more.
And interesting and nice work, and
great.
Yeah.
So, Joy, keep it up.
Thank you.
And some great emojis too.
Great.
Thank you so much.
All right, any other comments or questions? Joy, thank you so much. I'm so glad we finally got to listen to your lecture. It was very inspiring and also very well organized. I really enjoyed it. And also learning so much about hair culture. I wonder, is hair such a big deal for the men in your community, or is it just mostly women?
Mostly women.
Yeah, because the men just keep it short and clean.
Yeah, they keep it short. If it has to be, if you have to braid it, it has to be tidied. Because if your hair is not tidy, it's read as either that you're having an issue or some mental breakdown, or so it has to be kept tidier and organized. Unless it's going to read differently. Again, how you have it presented will communicate differently.
Amazing. All right. Okay, well, thank you so much. And I will look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank
Yeah.
And I
you.
will
Bye
post
bye.
this shortly. Yep, thank you.
It was a pleasure,
Okay.
Joy, a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Visiting you.
Thank you, Sana.
Bye-bye.
Thank